So this gentleman by the name of Stephen Curry, which is a Democrat supporter, does not appreciate the idea of a low-income housing being built next to his $30 million mansion. And of course, he's going to block the project, showing that, yet again, there are so many people that want to be compassionate and empathetic, but as long as others, I guess, wanting other people to endure what they themselves don't want to endure. Now, what's interesting is that in the American language, there exists the word NIMBY, which means not in my backyard. And I realized I can't translate this into Romanian at all. I mean, I can translate it word for word, but no one understands what it actually means. We do not even have such a concept for things, and I wonder why that is. And the reason has to be that America is a culture that's focused on virtue signaling. And this doesn't have something to do with left-leaning people. During the Bush era, you also had piety warriors, people that would virtue signal about how perfect they are from a Christian point of view. It's just that nowadays people virtue signaling about how much they are woke. And in this case, you know, how much they care about the poor, the marginalized, as long as it's not in their backyard, right? Because that's what virtue signaling is. It's you claim that you are virtuous, but you don't actually have to be. Because if you were virtuous, it wouldn't be virtue signaling, it would be just virtue. So in this situation, you have a gentleman which lives in a $30 million mansion, and he has to say that he cares about the poor. Because if he doesn't, then he doesn't virtue signal. So even if he legitimately does not care about the poor and would actively hamper the poor from being in his area, no, he does have to say that he cares. And that's when you get to these types of ridiculous NIMBY situations. But what's even more interesting, and I've noticed that this is true in the UK, and I've spoken with Sargon about it and many other people, because I genuinely think that this comes from the Anglosphere mostly. And it's the idea that you cannot have a complex human being. You cannot have a person that does good things and does bad things. And the most startling example is when you talk about Hitler. Like, if you say that, well, Hitler did something good, he loved the animals, and people freak out. It's like, what do you mean Hitler did that? No, it's like, there is no complexity in a human being. You're either this or that. And a perfect example is the concept of degeneracy, right? I was talking about it on my live stream. And I was pointing out how, in the American way of thinking, like, if you are found to be even a little bit degenerate, that's awful. Like, you're an awful person, and everyone should disassociate with you until you stop the degeneracy. But here in Romania, in Eastern Europe, we have this saying that a little bit of dirt is fine. Right? So the idea of a politician, well, he's a little bit corrupt. It's like, well, a little bit of something is expected that it's fine. Because it's like, you associate that every single person is going to have a little bit of bad things to them. Now, of course, the idea is that that little thing should be little. Like, it shouldn't be a lot, because if it's a lot, then it's a problem. But, like, going back to the concept of degeneracy, because it's something that's been talked about in my inner group of circles recently. Like, for example, watching hentai is degenerate. I'm like, okay, well, it depends what type of hentai, you know? And every single person is going to have certain things in their internet history that they are not proud of. Like, show me the person that doesn't, and I will show you a liar. If you claim that you do not, let me see your internet history. Just give it to me. Give me a little bit of access. A little bit of access. I want your phone as well. Very important. And then we can talk, you know? So, why is this important? It's because, like, when you have one of these people starting to moralize and cast their morality upon others, they will always try to cast morality in absolutes to the point where they themselves do not fall into the morality that they're trying to cast. So they do not accept that, like, a little bit of a bad thing is normal and can exist in every person. The moment they see a little bit of a bad thing, they immediately cast judgment. And I saw this, for example, when I was in high school. I was with a lot of evangelicals. And this is the American morality, because they would say, if you steal once, then you're a thief. And I disagree with this concept, because the opposite would be if you do a charitable gesture once, but you're Scrooge McDuck, and you do the charitable gesture once, then you're a charitable person, you're a philanthrope, right? It doesn't fucking work this way. But this is where the Romanian morality comes in, and we don't agree with that, because, like, as I mentioned before, everyone has a little bit of dirt. So, like, okay, if you steal once, but you never steal ever again in your entire life, that's not a thief, right? It requires a repeated action. It requires that the person commits the act over and over again until they become a thief. The same with saying a lie, right? If a person usually doesn't lie, but, like, overwhelmingly tells the truth, then that is an honest person. But if a person lies once or twice, then they're not a liar. And this is something that Americans struggle with. Like, they literally just do not understand the concept. I have got so many people contradicting me and saying, no, that's not how it is. And this is what creates NIMBYs. Right? Like, this is literally what creates NIMBYs, because you have to pretend, amongst other people, that any bad thing is unacceptable, no matter how small, no matter how little. And, of course, you do bad things yourself, but when you judge others, when you use your morality upon others, it needs to sound like you expect everyone else to be Jesus Christ. So when it turns out that you're not Jesus Christ, well, you're a hypocrite, and you're a fucking NIMBY. So this is why this word, like, NIMBY, doesn't even exist in my country. Like, we think differently, we operate differently. As for the Americans, it's like, yeah, it's going to happen time and time again. The more moralistic a person is, the more they preach their judgments on the masses, and especially to people that they're not related to, or they do not have any legitimate position of power over. Those people are going to be the most massive hypocrites ever. And it reminded me the time where you had the Bush era, and there were like the pro-family politicians, right, that were against gay rights and whatnot, and then it turns out that they themselves were gay. Like, that wasn't just a Hollywood trope, that existed. Not as often as the liberals like to say, but it did exist in the United States. Now, what's interesting is that if this gentleman was in Romania, he wouldn't even have to pretend that he cares about the poor. Like, what is he, a basketball player? He would just have to fucking play basketball. No one cares what a basketball player has to say about politics in my country, right? So, it would be in his interest to shut the fuck up. Because if you start speaking as a player, then you alienate some of your fan base. You make less money. It makes absolutely no sense. But in America, because it's the virtue signaling, like, you have to signal. You have to constantly speak out on things that most likely they don't believe them. Like, I do not think that a person who lives in a $30 million mansion wants to tax the rich. I do not think for a fucking second. I bet this guy votes Republican. I am so fucking sure that when he is in that vote booth, he votes Republican because he doesn't want more taxes. He doesn't want to deal with the shit. Right? He doesn't want inflation. He's like 50 Cent, which actually said he doesn't want to become 20 Cent. But when 50 Cent said that, he was attacked and immediately backtracked. Right? This is exactly what's happening here. I do not believe for a single second these people are leftists. If you have a $30 million mansion, I do not believe you're left-leaning. Of course, in the voting booth, no one actually knows. But in public, they have to be left-leaning. Like, even if they were right-winger, they would have to say, to speak the speech. But I would be very curious to know how they vote when they're alone in that voting booth. Also, very important, if you guys like the channel, please consider to support this. It's in the pinned comment. If you scroll down, just a little bit, scroll down, you will find this amazing site, which gives you the best buyer's remorse on the internet. Also planning to make a video game. I talked about it on my live stream. Talked about it on Twitter. I might make a video game. And I'll use the money to invest. I'm going to be an investor. So, yeah, let me know what you think in the comment section, and I'll see you guys there. Take care.